You probably clicked on this video wanting to know how to do the movement tech in Tears of the Kingdom 100%. But these glitches are very, very long and very complicated. But not to fret. This is a video showing you how to do the main movement glitches in Tears of the Kingdom 100%, including Jetpack and UPR specifically. If there are any other glitches that you would like me to mention, please comment them down below and I will make them into a YouTube video in the future. One little note before we get started, if you want to perform these glitches, I highly recommend going to the description and finding the correct slide dock and moving along with the slides. They don't seem like much, but without the slide dock, the setup becomes much harder and much slower to learn and perform when you're in a run, so I highly suggest using the slide dock after you've been kind of familiar with the setup. But with that, let's get on with it. Okay, so first we'll be doing UPR, or Ultimate Pocket Rocket. This is basically just a pocket rocket, but it's not fused to your weapon, and it can go through loading zones and warps. So to start, you'll need at least some fire fruit and a bomb. You'll need 2 weapons. One of them should be low durability. You just need 2 weapons. I have 3, but you don't need 3. You just only need 2. 4 shields. If you can, have one of them be a different shield. It's nearly required if you're doing this in a different language, but it's not necessarily needed. It just makes one of the steps just a little bit easier. And then either one bow that is low durability, or some dazzle fruit. You're just trying to stun a construct, so just make sure that you don't have a bow that is way too high attack power, so you don't kill him. So to start, we're going to do a desmuggle, and a desmuggle is just a dynamic zuggle, but we're not picking up the weapon. So I'm going to swap to my weapon, I'm going to drop it, unpause, pause, and hold down so that I go away from the wall. I'm going to drop my weapon, and equip a different one. It should appear out of the ground just like so. Now, I'm going to spawn a wing, and I'm going to spawn a fire fruit. I'm going to now fuse this fire fruit to my weapon, and I'm going to perform a throken. Throken is basically where I throw my weapon, and it breaks, but it doesn't break at the same time. You want to throw it at the very apex of your jump. It's kind of hard to explain, so I highly recommend practicing around with it before you take it into any runs, but I'll just try to show you first. Just like so. So it said that it broke, but it's really at my feet at the same time. But now, if I were to drop this and pick it up, I wouldn't have an apron. So I'm going to fix that by going to this like over here, and I'm going to throw a fire fruit at a very precise time. Now, this isn't required. You can always drop a bomb and have you eat him with it, but this method does save 5 seconds, and it's really not that bad, so I'll just show it here. So to time this, I'm going to look at the likes pulsing. When he tries to eat you, he pulses 5 times. He pulses 4 times, and then on the 5th time, he eats you. So at the end of the 4th pulse, I'm going to throw a fire fruit at the ground, and if I do it right, I should spit me out. Just like so. I'm immediately spat out, and it says my rusty broadsword was stolen. Now, I'm going to fuse and tangle this rusty broadsword, and this is what that second shield was for, just to kind of keep track of the rusty broadsword name, and that it's on a different shield. So now I'm going to drop swap my shield, I'm going to bring out a rocket, and I'm going to do pocket rocket. So I'm just going to fuse and tangle it to my shield, fuse it to my weapon, and then now we have to preserve this shield. So I'm going to go over here, I'm going to zuggle it, I'm going to unequip my shield, equip any bow, and then I'm going to pick up my rocket shield just like so. You can also pick up that weapon after you perform the throken, but do not pick it up beforehand, because it's part of the throken setup. If you don't do it, it will always break. Just kind of weird stuff, but you can pick it up afterwards. So now we're going to pocket rocket our way over here, over to this construct. And by the way, when you have these shields zuggled, you can go literally anywhere. This will change in a little bit once we give our weapon to the construct for now, but in this state, you can go literally anywhere. So here, you would usually stun the construct with bullet time. I already took this construct's weapon, but if you didn't, you would take his weapon and then drop your rocket weapon just like so. So this way, you should take it, and then once he takes it, we can pocket rocket back to the like. If he can go. This can be a little finicky sometimes. Once he picks it up, you are free to pocket rock wherever you like. And as you see, I am not taking any battery. But now this isn't infinite for right now, so we need to go and do something called a permacall. A permacall is just where we're going to call a specific weapon. It's kind of complicated on how it works, but I'll just show you how to do it. First, I'm going to drop swap my shield. I'm going to fuse and tangle this rock over here. You just need a liftable object, so you can always use a rocket or a fan or something like that. But this rock is just over here, and it helps with text. Fuse and tangle it to my wooden shield. Drop swap it. I'm going to zuggle it. Unequip my shield. And then I'm going to pick up the weapon shield. This comes in pretty handy because since I see one shield and I know that the wooden shield has the rusty broadsword attached to it, I know that this is the correct one. You can also read the name, but some people can't read Cyrillic, so that is why you usually have two shields. So I'm going to pick it up, and then I'm going to drop a bomb. I'm now going to fuse this bomb to my two shields. First my rocket shield, and then my rock shield, or whatever your liftable object shield is. And then I'm going to feed this to the like, and then I'm going to immediately pick up the object. I will now call, which is basically just disappearing, and then I'm going to drop my shield, just like so. So now I'm going to pick up my rocket shield, just like so. I'm just going to keep this high lane shield just for safekeeping. And now you've successfully performed Ultimate Pocket Rocket. As you see, I have no battery being used, and this is not taking any durability on my shield. But to make this go through warps and loads, we have to unload that construct way over there. So I recommend just coming to this island or somewhere close to here, and then you can warp away. In practice, if you go to the surface dimension, or you go to the fairy island, which is what we do in most categories, this is not really a necessary step since we already do it. But if you're practicing, make sure to unload the construct. So now, I can just warp away, and we'll be good to go. Now for Jetpack. Jetpack is just 5 minutes of fuse spaghetti, and it's really complicated, so if you're trying to perform this, I highly recommend also using the slide dock link down below. If not, this setup is much, much harder to do, so please just use the slide dock until you have it memorized. I have it memorized, but that's because I've done this setup around 3 dozen times, so once you get the setup memorized, the slide dock will not be needed. But on to the setup. First, make sure that you have at least one memory, 8 mapped MNF zuggles. Make sure that they are not dynamic zuggles because you will need to drop them during a specific step, which I'll get into later. 2 weapons specifically. One that is non-wood and not an MNF. In this case, I just have a Traveler's Claymore, which counts as a stone weapon. You can do this with a wooden weapon, but if you go into Eldon or any place where the air is burning and it is very, very hot, your weapon or your jetpack will burn and your game will crash. Make sure you also have a Zonite sword. It does work with other weapons, but you will be attaching a fan to your Zonite sword, and it is the shortest weapon in the game. So just make sure you're using a Zonite sword. Make sure you have 4 extra shields. I have 4 extra here. In run, you won't, so I'll just get rid of one and show you what to do in that case. But this shield, which is a UPR shield, does not count toward the 4 shields. And then just 1 bow with 1 arrow. These will just be needed for overload management. Nothing special. I'm just going to get rid of one of these. When you are doing the setup, I highly recommend starting with 4 shields so that you do not have to deal with one specific step that kind of has to get reworked. But for the sake of being as realistic to a run as possible, I will just have 3 shields and my UPR shield. In run, you will only have your 3 shields and your UPR shield, so just keep that in mind. I'm going to drop swap my UPR shield. It's not needed for the setup, but there are some extra steps at the very end, so I just make sure to drop it now. Now I'm going to fuse and tangle a rocket, just like so. I'm going to drop my shield, And then I am going to attach it to a fan when it is on the top one half or 1/3, but just kind of on the top side of the fan, so that when I fuse it, it lands on this slant. This slant allows us to cull, and I'll get into what culling is later, but you do not need to attach it to the fan. You can always just put it on this slanted line, but the fan is kind of cool, so that's why I do it. Now, if you had the UPR shield toggled, make sure to Ultra Hand it now, otherwise it will toy with your overload. So, just drop it now, and then make sure to Ultra Hand it so that it doesn't count towards your overload stack. Just drop it off somewhere where it's not going to be in your way. Now I'm going to leave the rocket at our work zone. Our work zone will be from this line right here, as you can see the rocket disappears, up to the wall, and then over here. So now, if you only have 2 shields, you'll just have to Zuggle 1 extra and then dupe up to 3. Just like so. If you're wondering where our 4th shield is, it's over there. That's going to be our 4th shield. It's helping us cull. It's helping us through the setup. You should have 3 shields at this time. Now, I'm going to draw my bow. I'm going to Zuggle. Swap my shield to dupe it. And then swap to my Zonite Sword to dupe that as well. They should both appear on the ground. I'll pick them both up. Swap shield to resync. I'm going to swap once and swap twice to overload drop our weapon that is not the MNF or the Zonite Sword. Fuse this to my shield and do something called a fail drop. Fail drop is just dropping it against a wall, and it should kind of reappear back to where it's supposed to be. I'm now going to pick up this rocket. In this case, I have 1 extra overload. That is not that big of a deal. I will do something called armor desync. If you have overload, just equip a piece of armor. It will desync, just like so. Link is now missing his hair, but now I have 1 less overload. So now I can pick up the rocket. I'm going to turn my back so that I am facing this way. And then I'm going to make sure that I can drop everything here. Because I am dropping all of my MNFs, I have to make sure that I can also drop my shields, because if not, bad things will happen. First, drop swap your weapon. And when I say drop swap during these types of calls, or in any time in general, always swap to a Zonite Sword. You will always have at least 1 Zonite Sword in your inventory, so when I say drop swap, just swap to it. You can use other weapons, but just make sure not to use an MNF, and just for easy memorization purposes, just use a Zonite Sword. I'll drop swap my weapons, unpause, let the MNF spread out. I will drop 1 shield, 2 shields, and equip the 3rd shield. Now, I will pull up my rune wheel, and I will watch a memory. You need to make sure you can pull up your rune wheel, because if not, you will not be able to uncull. So now, I have unculled, just like so. I will now fuse FE, this Hylian shield, drop the shield, pick up the Hylian shield. Now I will do something called a double Zuggle. It's just Zuggling your weapon and your shield, or 2 things at the same time. So Zuggle your weapon and your shield, just like so. And then overload drop your Zonite Sword. Just equip, you already have enough overload. Now do something called a null FE. A null FE is where you fuse and tangle to this none spot. It should appear on the ground. And now, since you have no shield equipped, pick up the Traveler's Claymore or your weapon shield. Zuggle it. Unequip shield and unequip bow. And then pick up the shield. Find the rocket. Pick it up, just like so. And then I'm going to move over here so I have workspace and call. One thing to mention, this line right here, you see this crack right here. This line is our cull zone. So just make sure your rocket is mostly outside of the cull zone. And when you walk past this line with the rocket, you can see it will disappear. If you pick up the rocket while you are in the cull zone and you are in the middle of the pickup animation, it is a soft lock. You have to reset. You will have to close the game. There is no way out. So now, enter the cull zone, drop your shield, swap runes, make sure you're not on the map rune. If you swap to the map rune when you're doing this, it will not work. So, if you are on the map, just swap to any other rune. And then uncull, just like so. One other thing to mention, is that if you are using the intro skip cutscene mod, this awakening memory will not work to uncall you. You have to use a different memory. If you're not using the intro skip cutscene mod, it's fine. Go and use that memory as you wish. Now, pick up your weapon shield. Yes, it is now weapon shield. And then pick up the rocket. Now just shimmy your way in and out of the call zone so that your weapon appears on your back. If you call during this time, just swap to a rune and uncall. It's not that big of a deal. Now, drop a fan. And fuse it to your weapon once. And fuse it to your weapon twice. And boom, now it is attached to the Zonite Sword. Now I will drop swap my weapon. See how I swap to a Zonite Sword. Zuggle it. Unequip weapon. Pick up the Fan Guster. I'm just going to run over here and swing it. You should swing it, and you should see that no battery was used. If battery is used, run further away from your workstation and swing it again. I usually come to around here, but you can go to kind of any place that is far enough. When I come back, the fan should turn on, and it should not be using any battery, just like so. And now, cull. Drop swap your weapon, swap runes, and uncall. Now, zuggle your weapon, unequip weapon. Now you're going to drop your equipped shield, any other shield, destroy the fuse material on the third shield, and then equip any bow. You should have 2 shields on the ground. It should be 1 extra shield and your weapon shield. Now draw your bow and pick up the Zonite Sword, and it should overload pickup. Just like so. If not, if you picked it up, just fail drop it, which is dropping it against the wall, drop it back on the ground, and then attempt to overload pick it up again. Now, overload drop a shield, and fuse this shield to your weapon. When you overload drop something, always fuse it to the opposite thing. If I fuse this overload drop shield to my shield, my game would instantly crash. It will say that in the dock, but just kind of keep that in mind when I'm showing you these few steps, because it becomes a little easier to know on what's kind of going on. So I'm going to fuse this shield to my weapon. I'm going to fuse the Zonite Sword to my shield, and this random shield to my shield. I'm going to drop my shield sword, pick up the cull weapon, which is just the weapon that you dropped when you were culled, zuggle it, unequip weapon, pick up my shield sword, and I will cull, just like so. Now, drop swap your weapon, swap runes, and uncull. Now, zuggle your weapon, and then drop, swap, and unequip your shield. Now, overload pickup the shield on top of the shield that has a weapon fused to it. It should be the one on the right, but just make sure that it is on top, and it does not have a random Zonite Sword fused to it. Now, fuse the shield with the Zonite Sword attached to it to your shield. Just like so. Now overload drop your weapon. In this case, you want it to be a Zonite Sword. Fuse that to your shield, and then fuse both shields to your weapon. So I'm going to fuse 1 shield to my weapon and 2 shields to my weapon. Now drop your shield sword, pick up the cull weapon, zuggle it, unequip weapon, pick up shield sword, and cull. I'm a little scared to pick this up because, as you see, it is in the cull zone, so I'm simply just going to ultra hand it out and pick it up just like so. Now, I'm going to drop weapon, drop swap shield, swap runes, and uncull. Now, fuse the rocket to your shield and unequip. Pick up the weapon shield, Zuggle it, and then use the rocket shield. This is called detangling for anyone who wants to get technical about this. So just use the rocket shield, just like so. Drop your shields. Now, to preserve my UPR shield, I'm going to pick it up, zuggle it, unequip shield, unequip bow, and now I'm going to recall the Zonite sword, pick it up, drop it. It should jitter. Once it starts jittering, you will pause and reload. Make sure not to unpause and pause too fast. Make sure it is a slow unpause and pause and that the weapon is jittering first. So now, I will just load a hard save. And boom, you have just performed Recursed Jetpack. So now, you should have a UPR shield on your back. To achieve this shield, just drop it and pick it up, and boom! Now you have Jetpack. Now we'll go over some caveats of Jetpack, but since we are in the depths, one of the major ones will be a little bit hindered. I highly recommend just testing these out once you have Jetpack. It's really fun using this thing, so I highly recommend just testing it out if you decide to do this glitch. So first, Jetpack has durability. The Zonite sword has 20 durability, so your Jetpack also has 20 durability. If you do something called a Ghost Fuse, which you can see in the route dock, your Jetpack, will gain up to 45 durability, aka will gain extra. The way that you do damage to your Jetpack is by jump slashing and getting those red sparks on the ground. If I just swing my weapon at stuff, I will not, but if I get these red sparks on the ground from a jump slash, my Jetpack will be losing durability. Second off, how do you want to move with Jetpack? Well, if you are not using UPR, you're going to want to pump every 1.75 seconds. Now that's a weird amount of time, but one way that you can tell is that once your paraglider starts to dip forward, you want to pump your paraglider just like so to refresh your speed. If you're using UPR, this is a different story. You're going to want to have your rocket shield out, and now you're going to want to pump as little as you possibly can. You want to be paragliding as much as possible, even if you are or are not using UPR, but with UPR, you will preserve your speed for much longer. It has been untested past 5 seconds, but you lose very, very minimal speed if I pump every 5 seconds. You lose lots of speed if you do not have UPR, but if you do have UPR, just try to pump as little as possible to preserve your height. Now, for arguably the most fun part about Jetpack, aka gas launches. Since this fan at our feet is gassed, and a gas is just, it's a weird acronym, but all you need to know is that it is always on, we can do something called a gas launch. And trust me, these gas launches are extremely powerful. If you want to check, you can check the world record to see how powerful these really are. Just go to the Wind Temple Ascend, but I'll show a little demonstration here. So I'm going to drop a big battery, pick it up, I'm going to ascend through it, and I'm going to mash A to ascend out as fast as possible. If I do not ascend out as fast as possible, the battery will have so much speed that it will just kind of teleport. So please bear with me if I miss this just a couple times, because it is a little bit precise, but it is highly retriable. So I'm going to mash A here, and as you can see, I get launched into the sky. This can launch you up to 1,000 or more meters into the sky. It is extremely, extremely powerful. One thing I do have to say is that if you're using ODZ Clay, your gas launch height will be greatly hindered. If you do not know what ODZ Clay is, then just disregard what I said. If you do know what ODZ Clay is, Just make sure to test your gas launches before you implement them into your route to make sure that they are high enough. And finally, gas weapons have a weird ability of, for some reason, not updating your respawn coordinates. There is a way around this, though. If you do want to update your respawn coordinates, just drop something like, for example, a hoverstone. Ascend through it. Wait for a while, like 10 seconds. It does not have to be that long, just usually around 10 seconds does the trick. Descend, and if you are in a correct spot, which I am not, your coordinates should be updated and you should force an autosave. You will not get almost any saves when you are using Jetpack normally. So, if you're going into an area where you need a save because you could die, please make sure to ascend and ascend back to regain an autosave, because without it, you will be sent probably an hour or more back of progress. I have learned it the hard way dozens of times, so just please keep that in mind if you are using Jetpack. This does save time at a world record level, but combined with UPR and Jetpack, it can save a combined total of 2 hours. With just these two tricks alone, the world record for 100% went from a 28:45 to a 26:54. And the world record holder says there is still a half hour of time saved to be made. And that will do it for this one. This was just to show the complex movement tech that is in 100% and how to perform it. These tricks are very, very complicated, and not a lot of people know about them, and there are not a lot of guides on how to do it. So hopefully, if you are trying to perform these tricks, this video will help you out. If you really want to learn more about this, or you have any questions, just leave a comment, and I will try to answer them. Or just DM me at DinoTechSR on Discord, and I will hopefully respond to you. If not, again, the comment section will be the best place, and I guarantee you there will be people in the comment section that know what they're talking about. But with that, I'll see you later.